Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and I am sorry if I sound a little bit different today. I am getting over laryngitis and I am fighting through it. Call me Winnie the Pooh for the amount of honey I have been drinking in my tea the last few days. And speaking of tea, welcome to the first of many Bridgerton and Regency videos that are coming your way. This should have been out already. I am so sorry. Boy, did I try. But at least I got it right with the dress. Check it out. We got tea, we got bees, we got flowers. It's glorious. And now let's talk about the Bridgerton prequels. We know about the 8 Bridgerton siblings, but did you know about the other Bridgertons? That's right. We got 4 prequels written after the books, which always confuses me, but you can't have prequels without the books, but they happen first. Does that throw anyone else off? No, just me. Great, fantastic, wonderful. So the very first one is Because of Miss Bridgerton, and although we have a fabulous dress on the front, Alright, I'm gonna be real honest with you. These prequels are such a mixed bag, it's not even funny. There is quite the ranking, and I gotta be honest, some of them did not even feel like they were written by Julia Quinn, or they were just a total throwaway and money grab. I said what I said, I told you. The tea is gonna be piping hot when it comes to some of these books. I have some stuff to say. So all these are sort of about Bridgertons. That's how she got the green light for the series, I'm sure. But they're actually about a family called the Rokesbys. There are 4 brothers, and this is how they find their wives. And most of them, they're Bridgertons. This one is indeed about the lovely Billy Bridgerton. Everyone expects Billy to marry one of the Rokesby brothers, okay? They basically grow up next door or across the road. They're estates, okay? They have giant palatial acreages. It's across the road. It's next to one another. It's both. Anyway, they've been neighbors for centuries. Billy grew up with 2 of the brothers, Edward and Andrew, and they just ran amok, okay? Amok. And she was one of the boys. Billy really lived up to her name. She gave as good as she got. However, the eldest and heir to the earldom, might I add. His name was George. He was older than all of them, and I'm not gonna say he was a stick in the mud because he had his fun as well, but knowing he was gonna inherit the earldom, they're a little more uppity, not boring. We're not gonna go with boring. Dear, sweet, lovely Billy winds up in the most absurd of situations together. Billy likes trees apparently because she climbed a tree to save a cat and then she fell down off the tree onto a roof in the beginning of the book, and he goes to save her and the ladder gets knocked down and we got a proximity thing going on. Luckily they're not up there long enough to scandalize anyone, but sparks begin to fly, they start to think about one another differently, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know, love can happen and blossom from the most unlikely of places. So look, we get our funny opening, we get this kind of frenemy thing going on, and what Julia Quinn is basically trying to recreate here is another, like, enemies to lovers thing going on, okay? Love in the most unlikely of places, they never got along, they were always cat and dog fighting. I am sorry. What unfortunately happened in this book is that she had to create the entire backstory, which was already done for us when we met Kate and Anthony, with the Duke and I being the first in the series. Unfortunately, we had to get the entire Rokesby story, the new Bridgerton story, and the backstory of the family. Then we had to get the whole lay of the land, all of the family backstory. She had to convince us that these 2 grew up together, had a whole history. We needed their history. We needed all of that. We needed their childhoods, which we did not need when we met Kate and Anthony. All of this took up so much space in this 300-page book. I swear these are shorter than all the books in the actual Bridgerton series, that by the time we got to the end, you weren't gonna get the same build-up because there was no space to create the animosity that I needed. They were just children. Okay? Children tug hair and pull mud, and I'm sorry, it was just not that exciting. They did not have the same animosity, they did not have the same banter. There's no real reason for them not to get along, there was no big incidents. In fact, the book opens with their big gasp moment where they were suddenly attracted to one another. So it really did not work at all. We start with them suddenly having some sparks. Then we are expected to believe that they don't like each other, get their full backstory, and then we go back to the sparks. It failed utterly as a narrative because of the way it was structured. So I'm sorry, Julia Quinn. So we get the funny beginning, which was fine. We get to see the origin of the Burbrooks, and let's just say Nigel does not fall far from his ancestral family tree. We get to see the origins of the Mallet of Death, which was hilarious, seeing how that black mallet earned its name. I loved seeing that backstory. We got to see Edmund a little bit. He was much younger than his sibling, as it turned out, so seeing like the young heir to the throne, since obviously he's the male, he's going to inherit the land. Hearing mention of him toddling about was very endearing and sweet, although a little bittersweet, knowing his early demise. Honestly, possibly my favorite part was hearing about the origins of Madame Delacroix. We heard her being referred to as Tayloress. We saw them go to the modiste and see, I guess, what was our Madame Delacroix's mom running the shop at the time. They called her Crossy. There was a little bit of like a frenemyship going on there. It was interesting. I enjoyed that very much, me being me. The writing itself fell flat. The relationship itself fell flat. The love scene. I don't want to say I was bored, but like, this did not feel like Julia Quinn wrote it. Maybe she did, but like, this was her so phoning it in. It's not even funny. The writing itself was just missing that spark, that little extra like humor that I have come to love from her Regency romances. And I find her romance scenes very enjoyable, if not a tad predictable. It's Regency romance. What do we really want? This was not it. Because of Miss Bridgerton, I was disappointed and bored and let down. And if you thought that was going to be the worst book that I read, it took me 2 weeks, I think, to get through The Girl with the Make-Believe Husband, which is a shame because boy, did I love the dress on the cover. But that's about the best thing you're gonna hear from me. This was so implausible. So basically, this is a retelling of that movie with Sandra Bullock, While You Were Sleeping, If You Were, whatever that was. I did not like the plot on that, and it took me years and years to watch it later when I was like really sick. Honestly, this book feels kind of like a fever dream too. I'm not gonna lie to you. Where to start? So this is about Cecilia Harcourt, whose brother is best friends with a Rokesby. There are no Bridgertons in this book. First of all, this could have been written by anyone. This could have been part of any series. This may have been written by anyone. This did not read like a Julia Quinn book in the slightest. This does not even take place in England because Miss Cecilia Harcourt is off to the Americas to go follow after her missing brother Thomas, who is fighting for king and country against the United States of America in the War for Independence. Boy, was this weird read. And he's gone missing, and she goes and finds his best friend there, who is a Rokesby. Mr. Edward Rokesby, brother of Billy's husband, and no one will let her see him because he is unconscious from a nasty head wound. So she blurts out, "It's okay, I'm his wife. We got married by proxy." Okay. So yeah, she lies and says they're married. When this guy wakes up, she's like, "I'll just explain, like, they wouldn't let me see you, and I was worried, and I thought maybe you'd know what happened to my brother." He wakes up, he recognizes her from this miniature portrait that her brother had shown him, and he's like, got this 3-week memory lapse, and it's like, well, I guess maybe we did, and he assumes she's his wife. This could have been funny. This could have been romantic. This could have been hilarious. Instead, it is her nursing this guy back to health, very much like the third Bridgerton novel, which so far has been my least favorite as well. The whole nursing a man back to health, it's not hot, it's not sexy, it's not fun. There's no fun to be had when a man is abed because of illness. It's not like all of a sudden he's better and it's like, well, time to consummate the marriage. That does eventually happen. And the guilt and the lies, that is what I did not enjoy. She's lying to him the whole time and goes through with everything anyway. She knows he's going to feel terrible. She's thoroughly compromised. After everything we've seen, do we really believe she would have gone through with everything, faked the whole thing, stayed alone with him, done everything to compromise herself, when we know that this means she's going to be ruined forever? Like, yeah, she was a little older. She was clearly pretty. She clearly had money and, like, stuff going on for her. It was so implausible. And it was so boring. We didn't see any family members that we loved. We didn't get balls. We didn't get fancy dinners. We didn't get pretty dresses. We didn't get shopping. We didn't get London. We didn't get anything that we love to cling to in the Bridgerton books. We didn't get any fun stuff because we're stuck in a dirty town. We're in a hospital for chapters and chapters. Then we're in like a boarding house in the middle of America, in the middle of a war. There's nothing. There was like a dinner. And even she's like, why would there be a fancy dinner where I have to borrow a dress in the middle of a war? And then she goes and like makes sure they can't attend anyway. I guess their relationship was sort of a slow, inevitable burn. And if you want the running through to the airport at the end, in this case it was a ship's harbor, you got that scene. But there wasn't a Bridgerton in sight. All I can say is that Julia Quinn made mention of a dessert in a bakery multiple times that, boy, she really did make it sound delicious. That is what I can give her from this book. I would like to think she did not write this at this point. That's where I'm at. I had given up at this point. When I picked up the other Miss Bridgerton, I was like, book 3, I have no hope for you. And yet, I am thrilled to say I was so pleasantly surprised. So here's our plot. Poppy Bridgerton is visiting her friend on the coast. She's hanging out. She's kind of ditched her because she loves to go on these long walks on the beach every day, and her friend can't quite keep up. She's just had a baby. And she also has decided to ditch the maid by buying her a lovely pot of tea in a bakery and going, you know, you work so hard. Like, take a break. Let me buy you a treat. I love this girl already. She sneaks off down to the beach and she's wandering along and enjoying the fresh air, and she sees this cave. She's just gotta explore, okay? She sees boulders and it looks like the perfect little hiding spot, or maybe a hiding spot literally for like treasure. And so she goes in, and lo and behold, she finds this like wooden crate, and she's really curious, and she's like checking it out, and like, wouldn't it be funny if like this is like pirate treasure? I mean, she assumes it like washed up or something. Then a lantern comes swinging, and 2 men wander in, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta find it for the captain." And she's like, "Wait a minute, are they? No, they're not. Oh, yes, they are, my dear. Freaking privateers just found you, and you found their stuff in their hiding place, and now you are in trouble, and they are taking you back to their captain on their ship, and that's right, my friends. We're going on a pirate ship!" Of course, little does she know, and this is in the description, this is not a spoiler, that one of the Roseby brothers, Andrew, he actually is working in secret for like the Navy and like King and Crown, and pretending to be a privateer, and like while he's doing some privateery stuff, like it's all for the greater good and like to hide what he's really doing, which is taking papers back and forth to like Portugal and Spain for the Navy. So she doesn't know that. Nobody else knows that. So she thinks she's like stuck on board a pirate ship. Her reputation's now going to be ruined, despite the fact that Andrew is a good gentleman and lets her sleep in his bed on board. He does sleep in the same cabin at times. So we got forced proximity, we got like hidden identities, we got like all the good stuff going on. I know I complained about like not getting the fancy dinners and balls, but like if you're gonna give me a pirate in disguise, you are so freaking forgiven. And their chemistry is great. They have this scene where he takes her up on board when everyone's down below and they're like stargazing. And he's like standing behind her in this total Titanic recreation. And he's like, "What do you close your eyes? What do you feel? What do you smell?" And she's like, "The breeze, the saltiest the air." I was like, after the drivel I had been put through, I was like, this is a different author. Did she like give up drinking, take drinking back up? Whatever it was. Maybe she was in a bad mental place writing those books. Maybe her publishers forced her to get through them very quickly. I know that has happened with some authors that I absolutely love. You can tell it's really sad when a publisher is like, you have less time than you need to write this book. Even if you're not inspired, I don't care. We're making money on you. I hate it when that happens, and you can tell. In this case, she got her groove back, and so did her characters. The banter was great. I freaking loved the banter. The animosity was great. They went on this amazing date through Portugal. It was so romantic. And then things took a little bit of a wild turn. It didn't need to be that wild. Like, it would have been fine to just like end it. But then we wouldn't have had the dramatic ending we did. And you know what? This was probably the most dramatic ending Julia Quinn has ever given us. I mean, ever. Like, I saw it play out so cinematically, and I was just like, when you doing it, Shonda? When you giving it to us? Because I know you want to do this, but you're gonna want to avoid those first 2 winners, though. I understand. How you're gonna pull off jumping in this one, I'm not sure, but I wish you luck, girls. Oh, this was the winner. And I know where she got this. Okay. So we got the classic, like growing up, friends, lovers, whatever. I feel like all these are playing something. The second one, we had that Sandra Bullock movie. I feel like Julia Quinn was like, I am going to rewrite The Flame and the Flower by Kathleen E. Woodiwas. This is the original Bodice Ripper. When this came out in the 70s, this was so freaking scandalous. And I stole this from my mother. Okay, this is the original Bodice Ripper. Before this, like explicit romance scenes, you know what I mean. They were not on page in the book. And when I bought her this from my mom, I was like, it's not gonna be like, we invented nothing. This girl went from like escaping being, and I have to say this in the YouTube friendly way, graped the fruit, to actually achieving that with her later to be lover, the pirate, who also turned out to be super filthy rich and have a plantation. So problematic, this book. Consensual non-consent? No, this was just non-consent. And yet they end up, and he was like later, I'm so sorry, I had no idea you were not a lady of the evening. My bad, total misunderstanding. I thought we were a gift to me in my chambers. And that's actually a slight misconception that very quickly is cleared up in this book too. They start off very similar and then diverge so quickly. But guys, I was so scandalized. Her favorite apparently is Shanna by this author. I'm not touching it. I want to know. I don't want to know what your favorite is. I don't know what your favorite tropes are. I do not want to know what is in that book because this traumatized me enough. We think we got smut. No, they did it first, guys. We would call this dark romance, guys. Don't want to underestimate your parents and grandparents because they read stuff like in this, what is this, 1972. Knock Me Over with a Feather. This is the hot teen video, guys. Heather and Brandon? No. Poppy and Andrew. Unless you like dark romance and problematic plantations. And finally, we get to First Comes Candle, which I was really confused and thought was the first in the series for a really long time. But I got there. So this is about Georgiana. And Georgiana is a little different from other heroines. She reminds me a little bit of Francesca in some ways. She's like older and she is like, I've turned down husbands. I'm not that interested in husbands. But she kind of one day gets kidnapped. We're really loving the kidnapping stuff. I don't know what to tell you. But she gets kidnapped by this, what is the word I'm looking for? Frosting face. That's what we're going to go with. This absolute frosting face, whose last name is Oaks. And he, like, sort of courting her, but he ends up kidnapping her because he loses patience and is like, look, I have all these debts. Just freaking marry me. Like, you're compromised. What else are you gonna do? No one else is going to marry you. Like, it's me or your cats. She does have cats. She has 3 cats. I will explain why this is important later. And she's like, no, you kidnapped me. Like, no. And he's like, come on. He literally climbs a tree outside of her window. Her cats line up like one by one outside of it. And then finally one named Cathead. He like wraps himself like a darn like squid around this guy's face and knocks him out of a tree. And we all love Cathead for this. And that's when Mr. Rokesby number 4, Nicholas, comes into play. The book actually opens quite interestingly because it opens from Nicholas's point of view, and he's called back from Edinburgh where he's studying to be a doctor. And we don't usually see the book open with a male point of view. That's unusual. And it's him talking to his dad, and his dad's like, look, you remember Georgiana, right? And he's like, the Bridgerton girl. Sure, what's up with Georgie? Like the whole like male-leaning nickname in these books here. And he's like, and we have decided you're going to marry her because it's the only way she can save her reputation. Do you remember Oaks? He's like, he like failed out of school. And he's like, but she's practically my sister. And all this happens, and then they have dinner together, and he realizes she's not practically his sister. She's interested in his medicine, and she's clever, and they make puns, and they're having fun, and they're talking about all these things that make everyone just a little bit green, aside from the 2 of them, and everyone finds it a bit morbid and not that funny, but they do. She wants to know what you do when you're studying to be a doctor and you can't find people with the right ailments. Like, surely it's, you know, you can't just go around breaking people's bones. And everyone's like, and he's like, I love you. It's kind of amazing, actually. These 2 are kind of weird and kind of amazing together. And it just goes to show that there really is that other puzzle piece for everyone, except maybe Oaks, the guy who kidnapped her, who is terrible. And I hope it really hurt when he fell out of that tree. They do get married. They do go to Edinburgh. But this is a really unusual story from Julia Quinn. And I didn't dislike it as much as the other 2 unusual ones, but Georgie, she is so feminist, and like there's so much in the book that it's just like she's questioning bleeding people because she doesn't think it makes sense, and she's talking about all these things that we know to be right in medicine now, but they didn't back then, and it kept coming up and kept coming up. There were a lot of things like that where it felt like we were playing too much to Julia Quinn, knowing the future and using that to Nicholas's advantage in his doctoral studies. And Georgie was so interested in being a doctor and talking about how someday women will be admitted to colleges and be allowed to study medicine, but I know it won't be in my lifetime. And things like that got slightly annoying. But seeing her being so intrigued and watching her make sense of things in a very logical way, that even I, who am not a scientific person, could be like, yeah, that just makes sense. Like, I can understand why you would think that. It was pretty well done. It was also really fun watching them. I have to recommend. So if you're going to read this book, please, please go get the audiobook, just at least for the part where they're traveling to Edinburgh, because oh, it's so silly. She takes her 3 right, and you remember the one named Cathead I mentioned earlier? So the narrator is narrating, and Cat has a very large vocal role at this point because he freaking hates the carriage, okay? He is not having it. He is unhappy. He is interrupting everything. And there are a lot of cat noises, and I'm sure they got cat noises from somewhere they must have, but all I could picture was this narrator who's quite a serious sounding voice, which makes sense for like a scientific minded Georgie and Nicholas wanting to become a doctor. But making all these cat noises, I'm sure they got recordings. I'm sure they did. But even later, every time the two were trying to kiss when they resumed traveling, the cat would maybe it was just me, but listening to it, I couldn't stop laughing. I was cracking up. These cat noises were like, I mean, it was like, they were so funny. Please listen to it. There's no way. Like, I could hear it in my head after I went back and reread it, so I don't think it counted, but there's no way it was as funny as if you just read it. There's no way. I loved it. The ending was a tad predictable. We saw it foreshadowed many, many times, talking about a childhood illness that Georgie struggled with, but I loved watching her earn her place, earn a chance to walk into the college and like listen in on studies, travel to Edinburgh, get a chance to try and talk to the people who were going to lease the houses to find a place. She worked really hard to try and gain some footing in such a male-dominated society. And in so many books, it becomes too much. And this was on the edge of times, but I thought it kept it okay. And this, by far, I thought, had the most love scenes, and the love scenes were detailed, slightly egalitarian. I have to say it was refreshing because Nicholas wasn't super experienced, if you enjoy that in a love interest. But of course, like, everything was perfect the first time, and she, reached her peak the very first time, and he made sure she did every time. Like, there were no awkward moments. We're never gonna have that in one of these books. So, there's that. In fact, he talked about how men would often talk about their conquests, and yet he would occasionally, like, make a mental note when something made sense to him that he thought a woman might enjoy and wasn't just bragging. So, the whole book was slightly, maybe a little tongue-in-cheek at times, which was kind of fun for Julia Quinn. Her characters were just a little irreverent in this book, and given the absolute sincerity that we see in all of her other books, this one just had that little, like, wink wink. I'm an author writing in modern day. So if you hate that, don't pick this up. But if you don't mind that, I don't know if I've ever read a Regency romance with that before, and I'm still deciding how I feel. But my overall ratings of these books, absolute last place. I think this takes second to last just because it was so generic and there was no time to build their relationship. She just couldn't do everything she wanted to do in this book. Then this one, it was just really, really different, but not in a bad way. And then this was by far my favorite. I guess they have a thing for pirates. So that's the tea on the Bridgerton prequels. They were fun. I'm glad I read them, but don't feel like you have to. They don't really add a ton to the story. You do see more and more of the Bridgertons later on. With this one, when we finally got back from our pirate adventures, we saw a little bit of some of the kids that Edmund and Violet were starting to have. I was like, wait, we're not gonna get his story? Surely we're gonna sit no. By the time we get to the very end of the book, Edmund and Violet have already had Anthony, Benedict, and Colin. And we see Anthony and Benedict fighting and throwing mud at one another in this book. We see Colin, who has a voracious appetite, and Violet is concerned that like he's gonna like eat everything, and yet she's like, I can already tell he's going to be a total charmer. He can already get away with anything he wants. So it was fun seeing that we already got little hints and snippets of the characters as they were going to be, but of course that was playing for those of us who were fans, and Julia Quinn already knew exactly how the characters are going to turn out, so it's not like she was looking into the future. She was just looking back at what she'd written and being like, we'll throw this in for the fans. So I can't say she's a mastermind who wrote all of this in the past and was setting all of the books up for the future as much as I wish. And they do work fine as standalones if you want to just pick one up without taking up the others. That's up to you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope my voice was not too raspy. I can hear it's different, but hopefully it's sounding worse to me than it does to you. I put a filming for as long as I possibly could, but at this rate, we're gonna get Eloise's story before I get these Bridgerton videos out. But that is all for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you all so much. Please like and subscribe if you feel the desire to. I appreciate each and every one of you. And with that, I will let you get back to your book, and I will be getting back to mine. And speaking of getting back to mine, welcome to a little sneak preview of the library I've been working so hard on. You deserve to see it if you've been hearing about it this long and you stayed all the way to the end of the video. So here's the book I'm currently reading. It is Sir Philip with Love. And yes, I thought I'd show you the nightwear I've been talking about. I told you, Regency inspired, super comfy, cups inside, totally not sewn in. Super annoying when you're sleeping. Warning you now. Also currently wearing with a bra because I like being on YouTube and I don't want to get kicked off for indecency. And I thought I'd throw on the Bridgerton bathrobe. How cute is this? Target, 25 bucks. Get yours now. They're still in stock. Anyway, currently reading To Sir Philip with Love. And since I started it, I thought I'd show you the very first gift since I'm reading the Once Upon a Book Box version. So super sneak peek to my next video. Ready? Here we go. That's right. Super sneak peek to the new library. So, To Sir Philip with Love, this is Eloise's video. Yes, I totally have a dress to match this. It's an epistolary novel, which means they've been writing letters back and forth once his dear, sweet, lovely wife kind of kicks the bucket. Do y'all remember on the show, Marina? Okay, in the book, it's not nearly as fun and exciting and dramatic. Turns out she doesn't get pregnant and all that fun stuff. She's just like a Bridgerton fourth cousin, and it's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Boring. As is Marina. Her entire wardrobe is described as somber, and she's just kind of depressing. You'll find out if you read the book. Anyway, I'm up to, well, past page 15, and I get to open my little present, and they're writing letters, so I'm hoping we're gonna get like a handwritten little letter, but it doesn't feel, I really hope this isn't fragile, like a handwritten little letter, so let's see what we got. It's sharp and pointy and terrifying, and why do people give me these things? What is it? What is it? Hang on. They give you cheat sheets. It's a letter opener! Which totally makes sense. And you know what? This thing is actually kind of pointy. I bet it could do the trick. But that is a little preview to the next video. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed our little discussion of the Bridgerton prequels and a little preview of the library and the next set of the Bridgerton books. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.